Okay, so I wanted to do just a quick little intro to Lightroom video, but I thought for some reason before I started, I thought I'd just Google Lightroom and see where it took me, just in case that's how you try to start. And so I literally just Googled Lightroom like this. And then it took me to this web version of Lightroom that I think I was unaware that it existed. So here are all my photos that I've added. Don't tell my daughter you saw pictures of her, but here are all my photos that I've added recently as well as not recently. So they are in there and I have access to those kind of wherever, which is interesting and helpful. I cannot edit my photos here, but they are there. So kind of cool. All right, so to install Lightroom, make sure that you go to the Creative Cloud app. So if Lightroom already isn't installed on your machine, depending on if you borrowed my computer or if you are using a computer of your own, make sure that you get Lightroom installed if it isn't already installed. Lightroom has gone through a bunch of different iterations, especially for the last few years. Like there's different versions of Lightroom. So right now we are on this version right here. So it just says Lightroom, but there's also, if you scroll down, there's Lightroom Classic. And then I think there might be another option, or maybe that is that Lightroom mobile that we were looking at before. So again, it's hard to keep up with this Lightroom because it has been changing quite a bit lately. But anyway, here it is. So mine says open, so that means I have it installed already. If yours says install, then go ahead and install it. Keeping in mind too that you have to be logged into your Adobe Creative Cloud account correctly with your email address that you use to do any of our other Adobe stuff for this class. So I can click open there. I already have it open, so spoiler. Here it is. So that just launches Lightroom. When you get into Lightroom, well, the first time it looks a little bit differently versus what I have now. So I've been using Lightroom for a long time. I have 13,000 photos in here. So for a while, I don't have all my photos in here, but from the last few years, I think I have almost all of them. So this is what mine looks like. It has photos in it already. However, when you first get into Lightroom, yours will look a little bit different. So you'll have to start by adding photos to Lightroom. And honestly, like even the research that I do right now, it differs according to how you want to organize your photos. This is not my strong suit. I will be completely open about that, like the organization of files. I sometimes try to organize them into folders or albums. A lot of times I just throw them all in here and they're all in one album. I just organize them or search for them like by date, or I also like sort of rank my photos. So I can search by like the ones that I've given 4 stars and above, or like the ones that I really like, and I'll go 5 stars and above. And then those are kind of the ones that I have deemed to be my best photos. So that is what I do. Or if I know like a range when I took certain photos, then I'll search by the date. So that's how I do that. Again, I don't think that's the best way to do it. However, I don't know. It's been working for me, so I'm going to probably continue working that way. Okay, so here in Lightroom, this is your library. So all of your photos are in here. You can add photos by going to, you guessed it, add photos here in the upper left-hand corner. So if you click photo or add photos there, then you can either browse and go to a specific location. I'll cancel that. Or when I add my SD card to my computer, when I insert it, then it shows up right here. So this is my SD card that I have in my computer right now, and that's that right there. So in here, you can view your photos. I don't do a lot of culling here, but theoretically, you could probably cull a little bit here to kind of get rid of the ones that you don't like. Just scrolling back a little bit. Also, okay, so let's say we are adding photos from my SD card. These have already been added, so it makes it a little bit more complicated, but yours would all show in full color like this if they have not been added, and they wouldn't be grayed out and they wouldn't say previously added when you mouse over. So you'll have to add your photos to Lightroom. So what I would do is, you can click on each of these individual little checkboxes in the corners to select all of them. You could do that. I'm going to unselect. What I would do, saves a lot of time, would be to like click on the most recent one. So that was the last photo you took, and then hold shift and click on the earliest photo you took from that photo session. So there's, let's say that one I haven't added hypothetically yet. And then I need to make sure that they're selected. So right now they're sort of selected, but not completely selected. So in order to select them to add, I would need to check that box right there. So now I can add them. So they're all selected, but they're also like selected to add to my library. So I would add those items. Okay, so do that, you know, if you don't have any photos in here already. Okay, so here's my library. Great, right? I could scroll through and look at all of them, or filter or whatever I want to do, like I showed you a minute ago. So there is that. Let's go now to the second option from the top on the right-hand side, sort of. So we have these options along the right-hand side here. Not those right there, but these. So this is presets. We'll talk about that just a little bit, but this is where the bread and butter of Lightroom is. So this is where you would make most of your edits. The other thing that you can get to once you hit that button is all of your photos will show up along the bottom here. And here is where, like, my workflow changes a little bit from time to time, but in here I would go through all of these, and the ones that I don't like, I found these kind of cute yet ugly, like adorably ugly little caterpillars, so I took a bunch of pictures of them. But if I found photos like this one, there's a moth in there, but it's not a very good photo, right? So maybe I don't want to keep that one. I would just hit delete on my keyboard, and then it'll sort of confirm the delete. So I could do the same thing with this next one. So I got a little bit closer on that next one. So I can delete right there, but I kind of like to look through and see what I've got. If I have a bunch of doubles, I can kind of delete some of the doubles, kind of pick out the ones that are definitely, see, look at it's adorably unattractive. It's cute, but yet yucky sort of face. I don't know how to describe it. So you can go through, again, get rid of any photos that are obviously like outtakes, the ones that you're definitely not going to want to keep. I always keep the ones that are like, yeah, that's kind of like this one. The face is out of focus. I probably could get rid of that one. However, sometimes I do some focus stacking. So I add photos together to get more depth of field with my subject. But long story short, like sometimes I keep some of those and sometimes I just get rid of them right away. And you can see the difference here between the one that I've edited, and this is essentially the same shot, just a little bit different angle, but it is unedited. So you can see over here on the side that all of my sliders are set to 0, whereas on this one, they're moved around a little bit. So this one has been edited. Obviously, you could tell with the lighting and all that too. So let's look at this one right here. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just click on, I'll click on auto and see what it does for me. Again, probably not best practices, but I find that this does a pretty good job a lot of times. So I will usually click on auto and then I'll make some adjustments after that. A lot of times I find that the contrast is maybe a little bit too high, or like the shadows need to come back towards the center or whatever it is. So you can make adjustments after you apply that auto. Another thing too to keep in mind about these photos is if you shoot in RAW, you are going to have a lot more information to play with. So these photos are in RAW. Honestly, anytime I'm taking photos, I shoot in RAW just because of that wealth of information that is contained within those files. JPEGs do not have that much information, and you are not able to edit them to the same extent as you are the RAW files. So again, I would definitely shoot in RAW if you have the space. They are bigger files, take up a lot more space. You also have to run them through like a photo processing app in order to be able to view them on most devices. So a lot of devices won't be able to view RAW files, but JPEGs can be viewable like on almost all devices. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. But again, I definitely think it is worth it to shoot in RAW. Like I said, I always do, unless for some reason something got switched and I forgot to change it back or whatever. But again, I would always shoot it RAW if you can. Okay, so one other thing that I think is really important and kind of a very basic here in our editing is white balance. So you can change the color temperature of your images just by playing around with that slider. I'm going to undo what I just did. Another way you can do that is to select this little eyedropper right here. And I find that this sometimes gets like sticky and won't select. You see how it's not selecting and you can't drag. Maybe it'll let me drag it now. Okay, so it wouldn't select before. But what you need to do is try to find something that is somewhat, oops, didn't get a good spot there. Neutral. That was not neutral. I'm going to undo a couple times. find a neutral spot in your image, and it will base the white balance off of that neutral spot. So that one worked pretty well when I selected over here. When I tried to get the eye, it did not work as well. But again, you can use the eyedropper for that, and then also still adjust the temperature a little bit, like micro adjust after that. If you scroll down, you have some other options here. So I'm not going to go through these in a lot of depth right now, but you have options here. You have in here, you can add texture or grain or things like that. You can also, if you go into detail, sometimes if there is a lot of noise in your image, and you can see here that mine is a little bit noisy, like there is some grain in a lot of spots of my image, and I must have had my ISO decently high up, and I could run the denoise. So this takes a little while, or sometimes it takes kind of a long time, like 4 seconds. I think it's already taken longer than 4 seconds. So I do this on some of my photos, but not all of them. But that is an option in there. You could also do, sorry, I'll show you a couple of things while this is running, but you could also look at sharpening too. So if there are photos where you would like to increase that sharpening just a little bit, like if things are a little bit fuzzy or out of focus, you could potentially improve on that a little bit here. Again, sometimes the results are pretty good and sometimes they're not perfect. So that is in there. There's more stuff in here, and I'll post a video that covers some of this stuff, some of the other details here in Lightroom. I don't want to get into all of it right here, and I don't think that I'm the expert on this, to be honest with you. So that is the basic editing. If you want to presets, again, those are that top option over here on the right hand side, and here are these that are in here. And there you can search for more and all of that, but you can look through those. So if I select one of those and if I mouse over it, it'll give me a preview of what it would look like if I applied that. And some of these are pretty fun and turn out really nicely. And then others are like, oh my gosh, why would I ever do that? There was some good ones in there though, actually. I kind of like those. So they're pretty fun. The other thing that you'll probably use quite a bit is this cropping. So if you go to your cropping option, or like, I think it calls it a module. But in here you can crop your image. So maybe I didn't follow the rule of thirds there, like my subject matter is kind of dead center in my image. So maybe I want to crop it in a little closer, bring my edges in and reposition it within my image. I can hit return there. So why did it go back to there? Okay, so there's that. I can also, if I have an image where I want it to be vertical instead of horizontal, I can change the aspect ratio, which is right there. I can also straighten my image with this little slider here, or I can also do that way. I can rotate my image, so I can flip it around or reflect it or whatever. Again, pretty helpful there. I'm going to undo some of this stuff, though. I'll go backwards a bunch of steps. I kind of like that. I also kind of liked it like this, but maybe recentered. Okay. Anyway, we'll leave it like that. Okay, there's that. These other things are pretty handy as well, especially this one right here. So it shows like an eraser. But if you see any errors or little like spots in your image that you want to get rid of, oops, we got it. So, and it says brush over the entire object, including any shadows or reflections to remove it. So maybe like here, oh, I wanted to just make that go away. That didn't work out very well, did it? I'm going to reduce the size of my brush just a little bit. That's what I wanted to do. So I am decreasing the size of the brush by pressing the left bracket key. And maybe I want to get rid of this thing right here. So let's see how good of a job it does. So I'll try removing it and see what the results are pretty good. I kind of like that, actually. So sometimes they're pretty good. Sometimes you have to refine it, like add to your selection or subtract from your selection or whatever that is. And sometimes you can just use this little band-aid and like if there's a spot like, ooh, I don't like this. It will pull in information from a different area and replace that area that you deemed needing a band-aid. So that is that. And then there's other stuff in here, like masking gets a little bit more in-depth, and we can get into that a little bit later on. But those are some other options that are in here. So kind of your brief intro to Lightroom. There's a lot that it can do again, and it will like streamline your photo editing process a ton. You could open all of these photos individually in Photoshop, but it would take you way more time to edit them than it does here in Lightroom for sure. If you're doing some heavy editing or compositing photos together or something like that, then you'd still want to run those through through Photoshop to do all of that editing stuff. But just modifying your photos, Lightroom is the way to go. Okay, so the last thing, once you are done editing your photo, and maybe it's more than one photo, maybe it's that photo, and then I think I also liked this one perhaps. So I can select them individually like that. This one needs a recropping, I think, actually, now looking at it. So I can select more than one photo, or I could select a range of photos again. So maybe I start there, press and hold Shift and click on that last one in the range, and then they're selected. So you can see they have that white rectangle around them. But like for right now, I'm just going to select these two. So I'm holding down Control or Command and clicking on that one, and then clicking on this one to select both of those. And now I need to export them. So I'll go to File, Export, and then I have all of my exporting settings over here on the right-hand side. So if I want to export it as a JPEG, I can choose that option here. Obviously, you have a lot more options as well. And then you can choose the size. I'm going to go full size because why not? And then also in here, you can watermark your images and do a bunch of other stuff like rename them and all that stuff. So those are options in there. Again, we won't get into all of that today, but hopefully later on. And now all I need to do is export those two photos. I'm going to tell it where they need to go. So let's say I'll just make a folder on my desktop. So this will need to go into Caterpillar. Is that the right spelling? I don't know if that's right, so let me know. So make sure that you are saving these as edited photos. So sometimes I will just like, if I have a Caterpillar Pics folder, I will make a new folder inside of that folder and name it Lightroom. So I know that those are my edited photos. And then like my original raw files, my photos that are straight out of the camera, I could keep those in just the Caterpillar Pics folder. Again, making sure that I know which ones are the edited ones and I am not writing over those original files. So you can see there was a little progress bar down there, as well as up here. That one went really fast though. It doesn't always process that fast, especially if you are editing or exporting a bunch of photos, but that was really fast. So they are exported, and now I could find them. So if I went to my desktop and in my Lightroom folder, in my Caterpillar Pics folder, there they are, the ones that I have edited, kind of run through Lightroom and gotten them already. So those are my edited photos. Theoretically, I would have my original photos in this other folder. I should have gotten that ready, but I didn't. So there that is. Brief intro to Lightroom. Again, super helpful and saves a ton of time. All right, good luck.